Hello, hello. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. We are live with another Lunch with Leo. So I'm going to try to just keep this open every Monday at noon Eastern time. I'm just going to do live sessions because that's going to keep me accountable. That's going to keep me regularly showing up on here for everybody who is needing new questions answered and needing to connect with some people who have the same type of issues as we have as widows. And so it's also just helping me to keep me helps keep me accountable. Put it that way. So I'm back. This is our second Lunch with Leo series. So far I'm batting 1,000. I'm 2 for 2. And I actually had somebody, I won't say the name of the person because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but she sends a message and she's like, how about I'm sitting here on Friday at noon waiting for your lunch with Leo and wondering why you're not here, and then realizing that you said it was on Mondays and not on Fridays. So, and I started to panic a little bit because I was like, wait. And so she just had the wrong day. She said she was excited to come in and do another live session. And so that just made me feel good knowing that somebody was waiting to come see me in the live session. So, um, feel free to post in the chat where you're from or any other comments or questions that you might want to talk about today. I do want to bring a general topic each week so that I'll have something to start talking about and, just cover a general topic that is probably common to a lot of widows that I see recurring lots of times so that we can, discuss it and I can just share my experiences with you. But let me take my earbuds out because it tends to make me talk really loud. There we go. Oopsie. Now I'm shaking the camera. So yeah, I want to try to bring a topic to the table every week so that I'm not just sitting up there and just rambling like I'm doing right now. So if you have ideas for topics or things or pressing questions that you'd like me to discuss in future Lunch with Leos on Mondays, feel free to reach out. You can come to the Facebook group and put it on there. You can email me at leo@onehappywidow.com. And just kind of send me your questions or your comments and say, hey, this would be something that I'd like for you to discuss. So that way I'll always have a fresh set of ideas coming. So glad to be here with you, Janet. Thank you for coming in and joining us. Good to see you. And I do see that we have several other people here. So feel free to post in the chat. Steelers country from Pittsburgh. So I don't do the NFL stuff. I mean, I got to say I'm a Falcons fan because I'm in Georgia and from Atlanta, but I don't really watch NFL. But I am a diehard Dogs fan, and I do watch the football games, as many as I can make. And because I don't have cable and I don't have CBS and I don't have whatever that channel is that you have to pay $70 a month for just to be able to watch some sports. So to be honest, usually I just look for it on YouTube and somebody's usually streaming it. I don't know how within the rules and guidelines that is, but I always end up finding somebody live streaming somewhere and I just watch it that way. So I know this weekend we're playing Florida. We always play the Florida Gators on the weekend of Halloween, whatever the weekend closest to Halloween is. So that's kind of a standing date for us. And so this weekend at 3:30 on Saturday, I'll be rooting on the Dogs for that. We should beat the crap out of them, honestly, but you just never know with Florida. You listen to the games for free on the radio. You know what? We do that when we're driving and stuff, but I do like to try to, put the viewing with the listening as well. Although I'm not crazy about going to the games in person because you never really can see what's going on and you're a slave to the weather and all that stuff. Plus, when I was in college, I was in the marching band with them. And so I went to every single game, which was awesome, but also became a drag because you never got Saturdays off and you never got to tailgate with all the people. You had to dress up in your stuff and you always had to march in and do. So it was a great experience, but it was a job for sure. All right. So, I wanted to update you though on a topic that I haven't really talked about a whole lot, and I will make a whole video about that, probably not in a live session because it's information that people might need to know if they are veterans of widows. And so if you're a veteran of a widow, this might apply to you. And again, I'll make a full video about it. But if you've watched me for a while, you would know that my late husband, Dewey, was in the military. He was in the Army. He was a drill sergeant. And about 2008, I think, he was released on a medical discharge And it wasn't even for medical issues that he ended up dying from. So his first medical discharge that he got out on was for, it was just like for a mix of things. When he came back from Iraq and Kuwait, he just was never the same person. And so finally, it just came to the point where we couldn't handle. He had PTSD, so he was diagnosed with that. He developed diabetes after he came back, probably from the foods and stuff that he was eating over there, and the amount of foods that he was eating over there, and the care that he wasn't getting. He had degenerative disc disease. He had sleep apnea. He had fatty liver, even though he was not a drinker. He ended up getting his gallbladder taken out. So, I mean, he had some hearing loss in his feet. So he had all these issues that ended up combining together and we had to appeal and appeal and appeal over and over again to try to get that percentage increased so that he could finally get to that 100% rating so that he could qualify for disability. And so finally, I think we had to appeal 6 or 7 times, and he had to do it himself. And obviously it wasn't working because he was out on disability, but him having PTSD and having a lot of emotional issues and just a lot of mental issues and a lot of pain. I mean, it was just, it was hard on top of all the paperwork. And so I was working 2 or 3 jobs sometimes to try to help make ends meet while he was done, and he would stay home with the kids. And so sometimes it would be weeks and weeks and weeks before he'd finish the paperwork. And it takes a long time once you fill in the paperwork and send it in. Sometimes it could be weeks or months before they make another decision. So anyway, we finally ended up hiring an attorney, or took his case on that final appeal. And it didn't take very long. They got all the paperwork necessary. They got all the medical documentation necessary. They submitted that appeal final time, and he finally got approved for his 100% disability rating. So that got him benefits, got him lots of benefits, money-wise for our family, benefits for our health care was taken care of. So we had free health care. And the children have college benefits that they still can receive now if they choose to use them. And so all 3 of the older kids either have or are using them now. And then my youngest, Dallas, who's in 9th grade now, she will be able to use those benefits. It's basically free money to go to college that she can use when she gets of college age. And she still is covered under the VA insurance for free. It's not great insurance, but it's free insurance. And so we're going to take it. So anyway, the point is we had all that done. And then eventually he ended up applying for Social Security benefits, disability. And because he was 100% rated on the military side, it was pretty cut and dry that he was. I mean, if the military says that you're disabled, Social Security has a hard time proving that you're not. I mean, if the military has already, said that you are. So he was approved for Social Security benefits as well, which meant that the children received some money for being a dependent of his. So that's basically how we made ends meet. It wasn't a whole lot, but to be honest, teachers don't make a whole lot either. And if I'm frank, he was bringing in more money than my teaching salary was from all of his benefits. So it was a blessing. And when he got sick, so the point is, he got sick with cancer in 2017, and that's what ended up being the cause of his death. And so he just assumed that since he had all these other issues, that the military was going to automatically consider his cancer to be what they call service related, meaning that something that he had experienced or been exposed to in the military is the cause of his death. And so, and really all you need in a cancer diagnosis is a doctor to say it is as likely as not. So it's a 50-50 chance to say whether his experiences in the military were a cause of the cancer. So all you need is 50% from a doctor to say it could have. No, we can't prove yes, we can't prove no. And if they can't say one way or the other, they basically will side with the soldier. Well, he just assumed when he got sick that was what they were going to do. They're going to automatically just say, oh yeah, it was service related, and that they were going to give me widow's benefits when he died. And so and between that and life insurance, he assumed that, hello, Kathy from Central Florida. Thank you so much for coming in as well. But anyway, Dewey assumed that, everything was just going to go through and I was just going to fill out a few forms and that I would be taken care of financially for the rest of my life. Well, it did not go that way. And so when I make the video about this part that I'm about to tell you, I'll get into more details. But the point is, I applied for the benefits, I got denied. There was a huge mix up on what type of benefits they thought I was applying for. It was a big mess. I'll go into the details later. But the point is, I started within a few months of his death, and that was back in 2017. And I got denied and I got denied. I think I appealed like 3 times. And I tried to get myself an attorney or a law firm to take my case. I tried to get the same attorney that we had had for his case. Well, they don't take, or they didn't at the time. They might now, but they didn't take widows cases. They only took cases for the dependent. I mean, not the dependent, for the soldier. And so they said that they couldn't take my case. So I'm trying to find doctors. I'm trying to find lawyers. All the doctor says, sure, we'll look at your case and take your case as soon as you get a lawyer to represent you. And all the lawyers were like, sure, we'll take your case as soon as you can find a doctor to write a letter, on your case. So doctors are waiting for lawyers are waiting for doctors. And so I was stuck. So finally, I just gave up after a couple of years. And I thought, well, I've appealed and they've denied me. And so that's it. And so then came something called the PACT Act. So if you're involved with the military at all, or even heard anything about the PACT Act in the news, it's a huge bill that just was approved last year that basically took a list of a whole bunch of issues, medical issues, and said if a person is suffering from these diagnoses or has died from these certain diseases on this list, and it's a big checklist, like you had to have served during this time in this area and been exposed to these things and then got this disease. But it's a pretty extensive list. And so one of the issues on the list was if you'd been in the Middle East during this period of time, which he had, then, and you got and it said any gastrointestinal cancer. Okay, well, does that mean, any meaning, I would assume like any cancer that affects your guts, right? So, and his cancer was bile duct cancer. Well, that comes from your gallbladder that connects to your pancreas. So those are all gastrointestinal, right? So I would assume that bile duct cancer would have counted. Well, when I went to apply after they passed the PACT Act, they said, no, that one does not count. And so I don't know what happened, but later on I heard somebody say, yeah, some people were starting to get approved for it later. And so I think they realized that a lot of people were dying from this really rare bile duct cancer. And so they decided to go ahead and include it. Well, they didn't tell me that. I just heard about it. So I applied one more time. And this was maybe 6 or 8 months ago. And finally, after 7 years, they approved that. They basically took responsibility and said that his cancer is service related. In other words, it's covered, and that the military is taking responsibility for the cause of his cancer, AKA the cause of his death. So it was a long, hard road. But finally, and then after they did all that, guess what? I can't get widow's benefits if I've remarried. Under the age of 57, I think, which obviously I'm not 57 yet. So I'm remarried now. And so I cannot get those benefits that I could have gotten in the beginning, if I had been approved before. However, I still have a minor child. And so I am able to get a small amount of money for her as long as she's under 18. And so I had been getting a check for several months. Well, the reason why I'm bringing up this whole thing is, number one, if you are a veteran's widow, please apply for benefits and please don't stop, because you never know who's going to look at your paperwork and what they're going to say, and basically appeal until they tell you not to appeal anymore, until you've exhausted all your appeals. So they had been sending me a check every month for 6 or 8 months, and for Dallas's benefits. Well, I guess there'd been a lot of fraud just across the board, and there's a lot of money that they're paying out for these new benefits. And so they've decided, instead of checks, they want to go to, that's right, keep appealing, Kathy says. but then they want to go to from paper checks because they don't want people stealing checks and forging checks and things like that. So they want to go over to um, direct deposit for bank accounts. So you have to have a separate bank account for the money to come in, and it has to be under and since Dallas is a minor, she can't have a bank account in her own name. So they have to assign what's called a fiduciary. In other words, somebody that's going to manage the funds on her behalf. Obviously, me as the parent would be the automatic choice for the fiduciary. And so, I should have been set up for it. So I was getting ready to go get my hair cut a couple weeks ago. And mind you, we live in the country. We live on 7 acres of land, and our house is not visible from the street. And so if someone comes knocking at my door, they're either very, very lost, or they are meaning to be there, or they mean to do me harm. One of those 3 things. So this big dude comes to my door, and my door is all glass. So he's standing there, and I'm like, I'm by myself, me and my dog, and that's it. And she's a puppy, and she's not very vicious. But, and I'm thinking, okay, why is this big giant man knocking on my door in the middle of the day? Because I don't know who it is or what they're doing here. And so Tim says hello from North Carolina. Hello, Tim. It's been a while. Kathy says they passed a law in 2022. They added many presumptive cancers for veterans benefits for DIC. You may need to reapply. I'm about 5 months in for DIC, and I'm rated 100% of service-connected migraines. Yes, that's the one that I was talking about, Kathy, is that PACT Act. So yeah, they did finally, approve it under that. So anyway, this guy comes, and I'm looking at him, and he pulls out, he has a little, he has a thing on his shirt that's got a patch that says VA. And then he pulls out his ID, and it has VA veterans specialist, whatever. He's like an investigator. And he shows this thing at the door, and I was like, okay, so that looks legit. So I'm cracking the door, and he says, yeah, we're here about your VA benefits. We need to assign a fiduciary to, and he, calls out our names and everything. So I'm like, okay, he's got the right names. He's got the right address. He knows what he's talking about. He's saying stuff like fiduciary. It's all legit. I was like, okay, good. I'm so glad you're here, because I was wondering how to go through that process. He says, well, we got a little bit of a problem. And so I went ahead and let him inside, and he says, we can't assign you as the fiduciary due to your background check that we did. We did a background check on you, and your score, they give you certain points for all these bad things, like traffic tickets and criminal history and financial, like if you did bankruptcies or whatever, anything bad that could have happened to you, they assign points. And you can't have over like 400 points. And he's like, yeah, you have 1,250 points. And I'm like, for what? He's like, well, your felonies. And so I'm like, well, considering that I'm a school teacher and have been for the last 26 years, I get background checks on a regular basis because, you have to have a clear background check in order to be a school teacher. I'm like, I have no felonies. I have no criminal, like nothing. I've never been arrested. I've never even been charged with anything. I've had a couple traffic tickets, and I had to go to court one time for having a fire that was too big in my backyard. Like and that scared me to death. And so like, that's the worst that's ever happened to me. That's like, I am not a crook. Right. So I'm freaking out. He's showing me this, this background check that they pulled up, and there's like all these felonies listed on there for Social Security fraud and government theft fraud and check fraud and all these things. And so I won't get into the details of how, and I can only assume how. I kind of feel like I know how the mistake happened, but the point is somebody else's criminal background got put onto my criminal background due to some mix-ups in names and similar places of living and all this stuff. So some woman out there committed all these felonies, and now it's on my criminal background check. And so now I can't, they can't sign me up to get these benefits. And so we had to quickly find somebody else, and my husband ended up doing it. But the point is, it was just one of those things that's like, you try to do everything right. You try to follow the law, you try to follow the rules, you do everything you're supposed to do, and still crap just seems to happen. Like, I guess that happens to everybody, but my sister and I always joke about it. We call it daily bullshit or daily bullsh. And so we say that, it doesn't matter how much we follow the rules or how straight the line we walk. shit just seems to follow us. And I don't know why. Because I'm one of those people. I'm a rule follower. Like I try to do everything like I'm supposed to do. And so, yeah, Tim says nobody comes to my house. So he has two big dogs. So I answer the door with my pistol in my hand. So Kathy, yeah, when I saw the guy, I was like, okay, I'm not opening this door until I get my gun. And so, but I did look and I saw, like I said, I saw his stuff and everything. So I would not have let him in if I didn't, if I had, I wouldn't even open the door if I had any doubt about it. But we do carry, we uphold the Second Amendment rights of our nation. And so we're well stocked in our house. Let's put it that way. Yes, sometimes life. Yes, BS. And Mike says, very rural here also. Nobody comes to the door and we do not know. We had 7 acres and sold 4. Tim says, we had that once when trying to open a bank account. Bank thought I was a black guy in prison in Florida at the time. I was a white guy in Ohio. Perfectly clean record. Yeah. So that's what the representative said. He said, he said, it doesn't matter what you're telling me. Because I'm telling him, I'm like, I can show you my latest background check. I can show you that, like, I can show you my social security card. I can show you, like, I can do another check or whatever. And he said, ma'am, and I told him my whole story about it. And he said, yeah, you're the second school teacher that this has happened to that I've dealt with in the past month. He says, and even if I believe you, he said, if my paperwork says that you are a black male and I'm looking at you and you look like a white female, he said, I have to go with what the paperwork says. And so I can't just say, oh, well, obviously this is wrong because I'm looking at a different person. He says, so you're going to have to. So basically he said, in order for me to ever be a fiduciary or ever, and in the future, if I ever qualify for benefits down the road, like let's say, heaven forbid, I become widowed again. I don't like to think about that, but between two people, if you stay married long enough, one of you is becoming widowed again, right? We've talked about that before. So, if that ever did happen to me, then I could reinstate those benefits, but I can't get those benefits if I have that same thing still on my background. So I'd either have to find somebody to appoint to get the money on my behalf, which is stupid, or I have to get this cleared up at some point. And so I asked him how to do that. He was like, ma'am, I really don't know, but you might have to travel to Virginia because Virginia is where it all happened. Like you might have to travel to Virginia to get this taken care of. I'm like, that's a 14-hour drive. I don't have the money or the time to do that. And so I haven't even called about it yet, but that's like on my to-do list of trying to figure out how to clear my background of something I never even did. So anyway, sometimes the internet is a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? Like it can be a benefit, but it can also just be to our detriment. But so what I want to talk about today, now that we're 20 minutes in, what I want to talk about today is that a lot of times I get my ideas for my videos from church. When I go to church and I listen to the pastor and he's talking about things, a lot of the things he's talking about in the lives of a Christian also apply to the lives of just people in general. So a lot of times I can take the general message and I can apply it. And so he was talking about how people say they get discouraged and they say, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so I started thinking about that a lot. I hear that a lot from new, fresh widows and widowers. They'll reply to my videos on YouTube under the comment section, and they'll say, I'm a fresh widow. It's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 months. It's been however long, in that fresh. And sometimes it's been a long time, but they'll say things like, I can't do this. I don't think I can do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't think I can do, it's like a defeating type of a wording. And so I thought about that. I'm like, what do I say? What do you say to somebody who is in such a place where they're like, I can't do this, or I can't do this anymore? And so, first of all, there's 2 different types. I feel like in the fresh grief, it's like, I can't do this because you don't know what's coming and you're just, in total chaos. And then there's I can't do this anymore, which means I've tried and tried and tried and tried and nothing that I'm doing is working. And now I've reached a point where I don't know what else to do. To me, those are 2 different situations, because I feel like everybody in fresh grief feels like at some point, I can't do this. And then not everybody gets to that point after a while where they say, I can't do this anymore. And so I want to talk about both of those situations, but mostly I want to talk about the people who are in fresh grief, who are saying, I just can't do this. Like my husband was my whole world. I he was the one that was paying all the bills, or I have all these children and now I'm parenting by myself and I've never worked before and I have to find a job. There's so many situations that we get pushed into when we are in fresh widowhood. And it can be extremely overwhelming because every single part of your life is affected. And your heart is broken on top of that. And the person that you would have turned to for support and help is the person that is not there anymore. And so you're having to do all these things by yourself. It's just like a perfect storm of no wonder people feel like I can't do it, because there's so much to think about doing. First of all, you don't even know what you need to do until you find out that you need to do it. And then second of all, your whole life has changed so quickly that you're just like, how am I going to do all this? So, and again, I don't have answers. So I'm not a doctor and I'm not a therapist or a counselor, but I can tell you my experiences. I can tell you what I've read of other people and how they've dealt with their experiences. And I can just give you some encouragement and just let you know that there's a huge community of people out here in person and online, of people who have gone through similar situations, who have felt the way that you're feeling, who have thought the things that you're thinking. And there's a lot of support out there. First of all, I would say if you want some Facebook support, our Facebook group, I think is the best one out there, obviously, and I'm a little biased, but if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, go ahead and join there. And the link is in the description below this video. It does take me, sometimes it takes me longer than I would like to approve people because I was so busy, but I've been catching up. I think I've caught up to the last few days. And I do spend a few minutes on everybody's application because I don't just mass approve people. I do some vetting because I like to protect our community in there, and I just don't like to let just anyone come in. So I try to figure out, I try to look for red flags and signs of people who might be scammers or trolls or, whatever. And so sometimes people get declined and maybe they shouldn't have, and they come back and they're like, I don't understand, I got declined. I'm like, well, and I try to look and see how they answered their questions, or sometimes they don't leave their email, or sometimes they haven't been on Facebook for long enough, or sometimes the other groups that they're members of look sketchy. And so, just stuff like that. So anyway, but if you are legitimately here for the reasons that, we are accepting people into our group, then feel free to apply. And if for some reason you don't get approved, just reach out to me and let me know what the deal is. And then, we can deal with it that way. So we have a really nice group of people. And we really keep it, as drama-free as possible. I mean, I know the fact that we're all widowed is drama enough, right? But there's not a whole lot of infighting there. And there's not and when I ask questions like, do you promise to keep things positive? That sounds kind of weird because I'm like, well, we're talking about death and we're talking about our spouses and stuff. I don't mean like peaches and rainbows from everything. I just mean that like, instead of adding to someone's negative, when you respond to someone's negative comment, try to respond with a positive response. Even if it's, I'm sorry that you're going through this, instead of, yeah, that really stinks. Me too, because misery loves company. And I find that when some person posts something negative about what they're going through, when other people start posting negatives, the me too, me too, me too, it tends to bring the whole collective attitude of the group down. And I'm not trying to be a community for that. It doesn't mean don't post when you're feeling frustrated. It doesn't mean don't post when you're struggling and you're feeling really sad. It doesn't mean that. It just means that if you're the original poster and you're struggling and you're suffering, or you have questions or you have issues, post that, and everyone else will come in and help to lift you up. That's all I'm saying. So we want to be an uplifting, supportive community of people when they are in times of need. And we all take turns kind of being in those times. Sometimes we come in and we post that we're struggling that week. And then sometimes we're the ones that say, you know what, I remember being in that situation and this is what helped me. And don't worry, it's not going to always be this way. And there's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel and all those uplifting things that so many of our members share with each other. And it's really a nice place to go to just kind of get loved on and get that empathy that you might not get in your immediate family or in your workplace or, the people that you know in person. So I wanted to say that. But as far as if you're a new widow or widower, and you have that attitude of, I just can't do this. Well, as soon as you say that, then that's going to be you believe your own self, right? So when you start talking to yourself in your brain, the words that you say to yourself, you are going to interpret as the truth because you feel like, well, I wouldn't lie to myself. Have you ever met somebody who lies so much that you start thinking, honestly, they believe their own lies after a while? And they probably do because they've convinced their own selves that whatever these lies are true. I know a few people like that, and you've probably heard me talk about a few people like that in my life, but I'm not going to name those names. The point is, that is really true that it can happen. If you tell yourself certain things enough times, you will start to believe it. That's where the whole fake it till you make it thing comes. Like, just keep pretending that you are good at, playing the guitar or whatever, and eventually you will be. Where they say gosh, I'm sorry, the dog is barking. They say, whether you're positive or negative or whatever you say, whether you say you can or say you can't, you're right. So when you say, I can't do this, you've already decided that you can't. You've already decided that there's no solution to any of your problems. And so what's the point in trying? So you're already discouraging yourself. And let me go ahead and say this, whether you like it or not. And sometimes I say some things that probably you don't want to hear, but I speak the truth, whether you like it or not. Like, there's a lot of people who say, I don't call myself a widow. I don't like that word. Well, I don't like that word either. But if your spouse died and you're a woman, you're a widow. If your wife died, you're a widower. And it doesn't mean you need to like speak it all the time. I'm just saying that, like, whether you like to think of it or not, that doesn't change the facts. And so sometimes we got to embrace the truth so that we can face it and so that we can start to overcome it. Like, one of my therapy sessions, the woman told me that, the only way to get through it is to get through it. You can't go over it. You can't go around it. You can't ignore it. You can't skip it. There's no shortcut. You just have to go through it, which means going through the hard stuff. But the first thing that I want to say is, when you say, I can't do it, well, guess what? If your spouse has died, you're already doing it. You're already doing it. Like, if you are alive and your spouse has died, you're already doing the thing. Whether you're doing it well, whether you're doing well, and whether you're succeeding, or there's no really way to succeed as a widow, but you know what I mean? Like, whether you're handling it or whether you're not handling it, you are doing it. The fact is, though, or the question is, how are you doing it? How well, how strong, how successful, how are you handling it? How are you doing it? But the fact is, you're already doing it. So saying you can't was too late for that. Not that you want to be in this situation, not that we ask to be in this situation, but the fact is, we already are in the situation. And so the first step is to, and this was a hard one, the first step is to accept the fact that it's happened and that we got to get on with living and we got to figure out how to do it. And so, but when you think about everything that's ahead of you and all the things that you have to do, or the things you don't even know you have to do that you know are coming, it can be overwhelming. So I'm not saying, well, just get over it and just accept it and do it. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that when you say, I can't do this, sis, you're already doing it. Brother, you're already doing it. So now it's like, okay, well, I am doing this. You could say, I really don't want to do this. I really don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm not sure if I can handle this. Then we deal with those emotions and those words. Okay. And when you get to that attitude, then that's when we reach out for help. We see if we can get some support, and we see if we can figure out how to do it, because it's going to be tough. That first year is really tough for everybody. And I've done a video about this, but some people think the second year is even harder than the first for various different reasons. And I'll put a link to that one below so that you can find it. It's called year one versus year two. Some people say year two is even harder than year one for them. Not everybody. For me, year two is a little easier, but it did take a little mental shift for me, to get to a different place. But for some people, they don't deal with year two as well as they did with year one, because they were numb. They were kind of zombified. They were just sort of going through the motions for year one, and they didn't know what was even going on, and they were on autopilot. And then they get to year two, and then they realize, oh, Like, this is really happening. Like, they finally accepted that's really happened. And then they realize, man, this is forever. And now I got to do what I just did for the second time, and then the third, and however long later. And it's a real bummer when year 2 comes around and you kind of come to that realization. So I'm going to go back and check on some of the chats and see if there's any updates there. Let's see. So Leo, variance and grief mentioned last week. The variance is huge and very much the same. It is also mentally traumatic. Yes. It's not, and grief, healing from grief is not linear. And so it's not like a straight line that goes, straight up or whatever. It's like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down. We have good days, we have bad days. All we want to look for is more good days than bad, or, more time not crying and less time spent crying. Like whatever the balance is, we're just trying to balance out the more positives than negatives, because there's always going to be negatives. Your life is always going to exist without them until you die. So we already know that part. And so we have to deal with the other details of life, like getting on with living, like keeping on and figuring out this new normal, which I also hate that term, new normal. I hate it, but it is the most appropriate because it is the new normal. The reason why I hate it so much is because it's like, it almost sounds like a positive thing, like your new life and your new whatever. Like, I don't want to think about that. The new normal sucks, like it's a normal I don't want. I don't want this to be my new normal. That's why people hate it so much. But whether you want it or not, it's coming and it's here. And so that's the first, I think, big shift for new widows is realizing that, like it or not, this is your new life. And so the people who suffer from complicated grief, which is like prolonged grief, where they get stuck in that part where, have you ever met widows that are like they're in their second or third or fourth or even more years, and they're still angry and they're still in denial of, I'll never be happy, and I'll never date again, and I will never take my ring off, and I will never, and I'll, like it's almost like a badge of honor that they're holding on to, like I will always be grieving and sad and all these things. And when somebody's saying those types of things, and it's been, say, 5 years, like that is complicated grief. Like that's a time for that person to get some, it's almost like grief has become a habit for them. And I did a video recently called, Can You Become Addicted to Grief? And some people, I think, become addicted to grief. It becomes their identity. It becomes like everything that their life is about. And it becomes them living their life as the victim of their grief and their circumstances. And then it becomes a competition. Oh yeah, well, I'm sadder than you. And you think you had a bad day? Well, my husband died. How about that? It's almost like it's this competition, and it's not doing us any good. It's not doing anybody any good to do that. So let me go some other comments. I finished some stained glass Linda started. Oh, I have finished some stained glass Linda started. You finished those socks. I was talking about in our last lunch with Leo, we were talking about, start some things and like finish some things, right? And sometimes we stop doing things because it triggers us. Like it was things that we did before, and the loss of our spouse triggers, we don't do it after they die because the thought of doing that again is triggering. So, and I was talking about how I was in the middle of knitting my first pair of socks when Dewey got sick, and then he died. And so they're still sitting there in the sock, in the little bundle, exactly where they were that moment when he died. And I haven't knitted since then. And I don't know that I will, because I was learning how to knit, and I don't know if I want to learn how to knit at this point because of that. You can move through it. You can carry that weight of the past. Yes, you can. That is true. You can, like we all can. The problem is that when people say, first of all, they say, I can't. Well, that's not true. They can. But second of all, they say, the reason why they say they can't is because they don't want to. Like they don't, or they can't see themselves being successful, or they don't want to see themselves being successful. And so the first step is to want to, is and that's hard to do. Like, why would you want to make a life for yourself without your spouse? people get in that mindset where, well, I was happy when my husband was alive and now my husband's dead, which means he's never coming back, which means I'll never be happy again. That's what their logic in their mind says, because that's simple logic. And so the fact that you didn't want to be here does not negate the fact that you are here. And so it's a hard shift to even want to be happy again, because when you start wanting to be happy again, that means that you're thinking of yourself. You're not thinking about your spouse as much, and there's guilt that's involved in that. Every time you get to a new milestone in your grief, there's going to be some guilt holding you back. It's like, but wait a minute, you're moving on without them. That means you might forget them. That means you're not honoring their memory. Those are not true statements, but those are the thoughts that creep in when you try to smile again, or you try to date again, or you try to laugh again, or you try to change your goals to something that maybe you wouldn't have done if they were still here. So those things always kind of come mixed with a level of guilt that you have to overcome. And you have to say, you know what? This is about me now. You can still honor your spouse and move forward, because that's the way that you honor their memory, by finding happiness again. And I'm not saying every second is peaches and rainbows, right? But I'm saying that your spouse would want you to make the most of the life that you have in honor of the life that they didn't get. And so you got to do it for them. That's the way that you honor them, is by moving forward and trying to get as much joy out of this life as possible. And I know it's harder for some people than others, and it's hard for all of us. Like it is. I totally get it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try, and that doesn't mean that we can't do it. So let's see. Yours is so heavy. Children and alone. You've done a great job. Thank you, Mike. And I know a lot of us have still had children. Like a lot of us have children, but it is different. I'm not saying easier or better. I'm just saying everybody's circumstances are different, but it is different when you are widowed with children that you still have to raise, as opposed to children that you that are grown. And I can attest to that, because I am remarried and my husband is widowed also. His children were grown when their mom died. And so I'm not saying their grief is any less at all, but I'm saying that my husband's responsibilities to them were not the same as my responsibilities to my children, because my children still had to be cared for, like not just with grief. Like they're all grieving the loss of a parent, obviously, but my kids also needed to finish growing up and finish school. And I had to go back to work, and I had to pay all the bills and raise them. And like, it's just different responsibility wise. That's all I'm saying. Do you have a video explaining the new dating etiquette after 24 years? Things have changed a lot. Yes, Tim, I do have one that my sister and I made a few years ago. And it's, I'll try to find the link and put it in. When I go back, I'll try to find the link to that too and put it in the description. And it's just basically about like the dating apps. It's mostly about the dating apps, about like what kind of red flags to look for and how to stay safe and things like that. So let me see, dating apps. I'm putting notes here to tell me which links to put in the description. Dating apps and year 1 versus year 2. Now I will tell you, I haven't been in the dating apps. I've been remarried now almost 5 years. So I haven't been in the dating apps since I started dating JP. And so I'm sure things have changed since then too, because I have no idea how it's, how it is now. It's any better or worse, but I can tell you it sucked when I was doing it. Like it was tough, because it was like a job. It wasn't fun. Okay. It just wasn't. Let's see. It says, it seems like we think of all the things that we lost and have missed. Those things vary hugely. Some have children, some don't. Some never have kids and grow old together. Now you have a new partner in life. Yes. And so we all deal with our grief in different ways, and we all move forward in different ways. And it's all okay. Like there's no right or wrong way to grieve. The only thing that's not okay is hurting yourself or hurting others. So as long as whatever you're doing is not hurting others and it's not hurting yourself, then if it's helping you, then do it. They say don't make any big changes in that first year. Well, that's not always the case. Like, I don't think that's always the case. I see the reasoning behind it, because you might not be able to make very good decisions for yourself when your mind is like all, muddled up with paperwork and legal stuff and grief and all these things. But honestly, it depends, because when I became widowed, I had had many months to already accept the fact that I was going to become widowed. So it wasn't this big surprise of how my life had changed. mentally, it kind of surprised me how I dealt with it. But like, I had already had those thoughts in my mind about how am I going to do these things and how's my life going to change. And so it was way before a year before I knew that I needed to get out of that house that we were in and that I needed to change my job. And so I made some big changes within that first year and it helped me. And so I'm just saying that hard and fast rule about don't make any big decisions in the first year. I don't think that's always the case it just depends. It's case by case basis. Um, Let's see, acceptance, that is key. Yes, acceptance. And that's the hardest, probably one of the hardest steps to take is the acceptance that they're actually gone and that you have to live this life without them, like forever. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Like a lot of people don't even want to talk about it because it's so hard to deal with and it hurts so bad. But if we don't talk about it and say it out loud, we can't then we make it turn into a problem that's so big that we do convince people that it's not overcomable. If we can't even talk about it, how do you expect these women who have young children and aren't working and trying to make their living, how do you expect them to think that they can overcome it if you don't even have the strength, the emotional strength to say the words out loud to them because you think it's so painful for them to even hear it? Well, don't worry about them hearing it because they're living it. So we've got to say those things out loud. We have to say them out loud so that we can, you know, define those things and we can lay out a plan and we can tell people, you know what? Yes, it sucks. They're dead and they're gone and they're never coming back. Man, that hurts. Like to say that to somebody. If you were a person who had not lost a spouse and you were saying that to somebody, that would sound harsh. Like, wow, I can't believe they said that. But you know what? You got to hear it and I got to say it because we have to turn that idea into something that can be overcome. And if we can't even say it and make words out of it, how do you expect them to overcome that life with it? So, I mean, we got to be able to face it together. And so acceptance is hard, but acceptance comes along with like looking at it dead in the face and realizing what it really is. It seems like I've already read that one. Okay. French lady says, yes, I tend to avoid those widows. So, and I don't know if you mean like in regular life or if you're talking about in dating, but it does seem like when I became widowed, I was pretty young, that it was weird. It changed the dynamics for me. And a lot of people didn't really want to talk to me because they didn't know what to say. So, and then as far as the dating world goes, widows and widowers are hard. Like we're hard to date because we did not get divorced. We're not married and it's not due to our own, choice or whatever. And so, when I was dating, I really found that I couldn't relate to divorced people very well. So I finally just changed my filters to only widowed people, which is how I ended up remarrying someone who was also widowed. It worked out for me, not for everybody. Dating happens or it doesn't. Go with the flow, be yourself, be around those who enjoy what you enjoy. And Mike, yeah, it sounds like you've got a good attitude about like, acceptance and then, let's move forward. Like, let's get on with the getting on, right? Let's get on with life. But it is harder for some of us to get into that groove than others. I'd like to plan some fun and exciting things around the sad dates in the year. It really helps. That's interesting. And that's always a question, like, how do you celebrate those milestones? Because you're not really celebrating, right? You're just commemorating and remembering. But, to replace that with something fun or something that makes you happy or something that brings you joy is one way to deal with that. So, Mike says, yes, plan fun things every day. Let the dates go if you can. I have trouble with the dates of things. They are triggers for me. And, sometimes the stress of the days leading up to the dates is often as stressful, if not more stressful, and causes more anxiety than the actual date. And my husband has said that as well. He's like, for about a week and a half before the last anniversary of his wife's death, he's like, it really just laid heavy on my mind and it just stressed me out. And that was all I could think about. And it was making him really depressed because it was the 5-year anniversary of his wife's death. And he said, once the day actually got there, it was like, okay, this is the day. Okay. And then he went to work and did the thing and went, it was like, it was just another day. It was a date on the calendar, but the leading up to it was what caused him a lot of stress. I don't know how to fix that, but a lot of people say that. Let's see. Thanks. Everyone wants to text. No one wants to talk on the phone anymore. That is true. That's a younger generation thing. But even for me, I don't really care to talk on the phone a whole lot either. I just rather just tell me what you need to tell me, and then we can. Texting has become kind of the thing. It's more comfortable. It's harder to figure out how to end a conversation. It's easier when you stop texting. Just like it's hard for me to figure out how to end these videos sometimes. And so I tend to ramble. And so I get that. Let's see. Mike says, hey, Tim, get an e-bike, a paddleboard, go snow skiing, fun stuff, and other fun people do those things. So yeah, maybe like figure out a group of people who do those things, and you can find people who have the same hobbies as you. And you might, you might run into somebody who has similar interests, or maybe a church group if you go to church, or a grief share group, or like, I really don't know, because in this world, like I said, it has been 5 years since I've dated. And so even then I was like, I don't know how to meet people. Like, I meet people on my job, and I was a school teacher. I mean, I didn't know very many men who worked at the high schools, and they were all married, and it's kind of weird to date somebody that you work with anyway. And there was nobody I was really interested in. So it's like, and I didn't really want to go to the bars. I went a few times, but like, you really want to pick up somebody at a bar? And then I'm thinking, well, I'm at a bar. So it's just a lot of, it is tough. It is tough to go out there and meet people when you feel like you're ready to move forward. And for those dealing with dementia, try Care Blazers on YouTube, helpfully before and after the passing of a loved one. Care Blazers. Okay. So interesting. I've not heard of that. Care Blazers. And sometimes, now, when Dewey first died, within that year or two, I had started fearing that might be getting dementia, because I was like, I can't remember anything. Like, I couldn't remember words and all kinds of stuff. And I realized, I did some research and found out it was widow's fog, or widow's brain, as they call it. Your mind is so busy dealing with the grief and the things that you have going on, that it can't attend to the small things. And so you tend to forget little things. And so I felt a little better, at least knowing that it wasn't like actual dementia. But I've realized lately that I have also, now that I'm over 50, I've started to forget big words, and sometimes small words. It's like, I know the word I want to say, but I can't think of it. And it eventually comes to me. It's real frustrating. So I think it might be menopause causing widow's brain again. But anyway, so, well, we've talked about the thoughts of, I can't do it, for fresh widows. You can do it, and you already are doing it. So now you just need to figure out, how do I do this, and how do I handle these things? And then that's a matter of finding the right support and going out there and getting and asking for help. And that's really hard for a lot of people. I hate asking for help, and I would rather just struggle myself and suffer myself than to ask somebody for help. Now, I will help anybody, but I hate asking for it because I feel guilty. I don't know why. I'm just real independent like that, I guess. Tim says, I think the second time around, you're more conscious of your new emotions. You don't take for granted the things that will last forever, and you enjoy the moment. Yeah. And I totally agree. If you start dating again, you're realizing that, first of all, don't sweat the small things, because most things are small things. And if you want to fight about little things, that's dumb. Then, we got a limited time on this earth. And so you might as well make the best of it. But, also just to stop and smell the roses, and appreciate those moments that you have, and to appreciate the time that you have together, because you also have a keen awareness that all of that time is limited. Because we never know, when that last day is going to be with us. So Mike says, Leo, you are awesome. Thank you for your time and advice. For help with hospice, there is Hospice Nurse Julie on YouTube as well. Care Blazers has over 1,000 videos on hospice care. Awesome. Very awesome. And I wish I had found that when Dewey was doing hospice, but he was only in hospice for 10 days. And so it was barely enough time to figure out what the heck was going on with us. And they offered, hospice offered me a lot of services after he died, which I was really surprised about. And at the time, I did not take them up on it, because there's so much going on. You don't even know what you need help with. And honestly, I couldn't even deal with my mental health at that time, because I was too busy dealing with finances and legal stuff and kid stuff and moving, and my kids grieving and needing therapy and medicines and money and going to work, and like I was dealing with so much parenting and being the mom and being the breadwinner, I couldn't even deal with my emotional grief. So I just tucked it away and just kind of ignored it a lot. And so when they offered like therapy services and, call us for this, whatever, for help, I'm like, what can you do for me? Can you watch my kids? Can you drive them to school? Like, can you help me pay my bills? No. So let me get back to doing that because I can't deal with all that other stuff. And a lot of times, by the time you realize you need that kind of help, it's way later in your grief. And then it's embarrassing because you're like, they're going to wonder, why am I asking for help 10 months in when I didn't ask for help 1 month in or 2 months in? And then it almost feels like that window of opportunity to ask for help is closed. And then you feel embarrassed to ask for help. But really, when widows need help is not just at that very beginning. It's really like when they're trying to get back to finding that new normal. That's when it's really tough because it's day after day after day. And that's when we need help. And that's when we don't want to ask for it because we're embarrassed because it's been, we think, too long. So Mike says, yep, Tim, things are more real somehow now. Yes. Merrill says, John's birthday this coming Sunday, first one since he passed. I will finish painting the kitchen, something he started a few weeks before. That's a good way to honor. And I'll say this, my Dewey's mother, I don't say mother-in-law anymore because I have a new mother-in-law and we don't get along with Dewey's mom. But anyway, she has contacted a couple of the kids and said that she wants to have a celebration, a birthday party, basically, for Dewey, because on his birthday this November, coming up in a few weeks, November 22nd, will be his 50th, or would have been, I guess you could say, his 50th birthday. So he died when he was 42. And so she's going to have a party and she's going to have it at the cemetery. So, but you know what? That's the way she grieves. That's the way she's handling it. He was her only child. And so, so she's invited the kids to come and help her celebrate his 50th birthday at the gravesite. She's going to have balloons and cake and everything. And so the kids are like, Mom, that's just weird. I'm like, I know. And I don't like to deal with her. And so I will not be going to that. I might have thought about visiting the grave. It's about an hour and a half from here. But I'm not going for a birthday party. I would just like to go and have my silent moments. And honestly, for you guys who've watched me for a while, you will know I've only been to his grave one time where he's actually buried. And that was shortly after he was buried. And I did plan to go, I think it was last year during Father's Day. And I asked the kids, I was like, if y'all want to go, we'll all go together. I'll drive and we can go. And they were like, okay. So we were planning on it. And at the like within days before, every one of them was like, yeah, I don't want to go. I don't think I want to go. And they all backed out. And so I was like, well, I could go by myself, but I really was just going to go for the kids in case they needed it. And they all said they didn't want to. So I still haven't been. I feel at this point, I feel like I should. I don't really know why. Like it's not really for me. So I don't know. I guess I should just go through the motions because maybe I will feel better when I go. I don't know. The weird thing is when you go to he's at the military cemeteries. When you go there, they just bury them, the next one and then the next one and the next one. So everybody who's buried next to the next one died right after that and right after that. So when we finally went, it was a few weeks after he had been buried. There was like 10 or 12 headstones, after his. And I know that now I've seen a few pictures. I haven't been there, but I've seen a few pictures, but the whole field now is filled, and then the next field, and who knows how many more fields. So it will be a visual representation of how many people have died after him. Military people have died after him since he's died. And that will be hard to take too. I don't know. Anyway, let's see. Matt didn't go on hospice soon enough. Okay. And yeah, I don't think my dog just came in here. You cannot be in here. Beans, go. She's not supposed to come in here, but she pushes the door open anyway. She brings me her toy. Let's see. and also have a pulse set up for yourself and your spouse. And I don't know what that is. So I'm going to have to look that one up because I'm not sure. And Mike says, go for it, Meryl. Thanks, Mike. And I'll let you know how it goes. Cemetery birthday. I respect her choice is different. Yeah, let's just say she's different in all sorts of ways. We're just going to leave it at that. Anyway, so we've discussed the whole I can't do it for fresh widows. The whole I can't do it anymore for seasoned widows, I guess you'd say, widows or widowers who've been there for many years and they're like, I can't do this anymore. That's a whole separate video and a whole separate issue. That's a complicated grief. I'm stuck in grief. And that's I need help because I can't do it by myself situation. So I would say, I'm not going to go into all the details now because we're at our hour now, but I will say if you're in that kind of situation, if you're like years in and you still feel like you can't do it, or you're now to the point where you're like, I can't do it anymore, or I don't know what to do, or I'm stuck in grief and I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to feel this way anymore, that kind of thing, I would highly encourage you to, at that point, you need to reach out for some support of some kind, whether it be talking to people, whether it be seeing a therapist or a counselor, whether it be seeing a psychiatrist or a doctor. Some people find medication helps. Some people don't. I'm not pushing it, or I'm not saying anything for or against it. I'm just saying it's out there, it's available, and the doctors would be the person to ask if you think it might help you or not. Some people find it helps, some people don't. Some people find that other supplements will help them, like depending on what state you're in, that some CBD type options are available to some people in some states and others are not. And some find that helps with anxiety and things like that. I can also tell you, and I can attest to it, that, making healthier lifestyle choices will help you. And you don't think it will. Like, what difference does it make if I get up? What difference does it make if I take a shower? What difference does it make if I'm wearing the same clothes for 3 days and I haven't brushed my teeth and I haven't eaten anything but like 2 noodles and I don't know, an ice cream or something. But your mental health is directly tied to your physical health. So I can tell you that making healthier lifestyle choices is going to help you. And I know that I'm saying it and I'm not always doing it. So I get that, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. But there's grief share, there's group sessions, there's online sessions, there's Facebook groups, there's Better Health, there's online telehealth. There's so many different options for you to find and do. If you need help finding something for you, then feel free to email me or reach out because I can at least help you look for something that you think might help. And also I am getting ready, like I'm spending today setting up my small group coaching. So the plan is the small group coaching will start in December, just in time to get us through the holidays. And I plan to I'm going to have limited spots. So I'm going to have one morning session time slot open and one evening session time slot open. And it's going to be first come, first serve. And it's going to be limited like to the first 10 people total, 5 people for the morning and 5 people for the afternoon or the evening. So people who work, and if we have interest, I can always open up other slots, but I don't want it to be like a group of 20 people. I want it to be a group of 4 or 5 people in each session. And it's not meant to be therapy because I'm not a therapist. It is meant to just be some coaching and some social time with other people who are sharing similar issues, and just to kind of help each other, hold each other's hand and get us through whatever it is that we might be going through at that moment. And so for December is going to be the first sessions of those. So if you're interested, just join the Facebook group or reach out to me on email and I can give you the details, but I'll be setting the signups in November. And then for those people who sign up, then we will start the coaching sessions in December, and it will be weekly. So it'll be like, we'll set up the time slot and it'll just be that same thing 4 in a row. And then for people who want to continue those, the people who have already signed up will have first option to renew for the next month. And then if somebody doesn't renew and it leaves an open spot, then new people can come in and have those. My dog is like, nope, I'm not leaving. I'm going to come over here and get butt scratches. So, so anyway, I am working on those, and those will be ready by December. So if you're looking for some holiday help, that will be a good way. And I'm sure that I will have some live sessions throughout the holidays that will be, geared towards holidays is always tough. So we always have to do some special things to help our people get through the holidays, through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, through New Year's, through Hanukkah, through whatever it is that you celebrate. And even if you don't celebrate it, it's still going on around you, and the whole world celebrates things. And so you still have to deal with, just the existence of all the holidays and things like that. So we're going to get everybody through it together. Mike says bye. He's leaving back to work and finish those socks. Ashwagandha may help, says Northern Belle. I cannot attest to that. I don't know, but that's just what they are saying. I knew I didn't want to do anything anymore than I thought Linda would want me to carry on. A lot on that thought got me through. Exactly. Think about what your spouse would think. Would your spouse want to know that their death has caused your misery for the rest of your life too? They wouldn't want to know that. Let's see. I've heard of several people who do birthdays, anniversaries, and other parties at the gravesite. I don't think it's weird to grieve the way you grieve and try to keep someone's memory alive. So Ginger, total respect. Yes. And I'm, I know I said that was weird. And I say that because if you know me and you've heard me talk about Momo's just weird anyway. But anyway, if people do that and that helps, I'm all for it. It's not for me, but you know what? Everybody's different. Everybody agrees in their own ways. And I can support anybody who, if it makes them feel better. This dog is over here you got to go. Dog, you got to go. All right, back to work. Every time I start to get sad and isolate myself, I remember that Carol would want me happy, and that is my strength. There you go. So 2 men have come up in the chat, and both of them had said that the memory of their wife and how their wife would view them and what she would want for them is what helps to keep them moving forward. So if that is something that is helpful for you, if that's a thought that's helpful for you, I think it's a very strong thought. And I think that's very encouraging. And I do agree. What would your spouse think about how you're handling their death? Okay, be sad and then pull up your bootstraps and straighten up your crown and pull up your big girl panties, or however you want to call all those things. And let's get on with the healing, right? And we're always going to be scarred, but we can heal. We can find happiness within that sadness. We can find happiness, right? We don't have to live in this grief-riddled state every second of every day. There is hope. And if you need help with that, then you need to reach out. And our Facebook group is a resource, is one of the many resources out there. This YouTube channel and several other YouTube channels is a very good resource. There's lots of good YouTube channels out there that do talk about these types of topics. All right. So I am way over my hour. Going on a first date tonight. Oh, Tim, going on a first date. You definitely got to come back next week and tell us how that went. So, because I had lots of last dates when I was first dating. Most of them were one and done. Like as soon as I met them, I was like, nope. And very few led to more than one. So, and I don't mean that to discourage you. I'm just saying, I got some I got some stories, and I cannot, I'm not going to share any of them right now, but maybe I'll make a funny video one day and I'll talk about the stories of, my sister can probably remind me too, because I shared all of my silly stories with her about some of the dates that I went on. And, but I wish you the best of luck. But I'll tell you this, Tim, and anyone else who's listening, when my husband that I'm married to now, when he started dating, I was the first person that he went out with. Like I was the first person that he met and saw, and he married me. So basically hit the jackpot on the first try. So maybe you will too. So I tell him he won the lottery. So I would get worried sometimes that he would think, gosh, maybe I should have tried, some other women out first to make sure she was the one. But he said he never, once he met me, that was it. He didn't need to meet anybody else. But so hopefully that's still the way he feels now, but I think it is. He's a good man. Your first date was a no-show. I had a couple of those too. Dang. Let me tell you, it's the wild, wild west out there with dating now. And it is really tough because it depends on your age, because I'm a Gen Xer. So Gen X, we got a totally different way of looking at the world, than Gen Z and those alpha kids or whoever you call them. But I feel sorry for the young people who are trying to, my kids right now are trying to date, and it's frustrating for them because, it's hard for them to find people who have the same mentality that they do. It's just hard. It's just different. All right, guys. Well, my dog is bothering me to death. So I guess she either wants to play or eat or go outside. I don't know what. Boomer here. You enjoyed your lunch solo. There you go. Make lemonade out of your lemons, right? Me probably dodged a bullet. So my child's coming to the door. What's up? Yes. Are you done with all of your stuff?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you can grab one.
Can I say hi?
Yeah, I'm about to log off, but this is my child, my youngest child, Dallas. She is doing her chores right now so she can earn her phone privileges. So she's got to wash dishes and clean her room and do all the fun things. So, and she's doing it. So she says she's going to come on an interview sometime soon. So we can maybe talk about parenting and kids dealing with, all the stuff. Let's just put it that way. All righty. We're going to wrap this one up and all right, go. She's taking the dog with her. Thank goodness. Northern Belle, you got to get out there and just try again. And like I said, maybe you dodged a bullet. If they didn't show, then they're not the person you wanted to be with anyway. So, they did you a favor. The trash took itself out. That's what I like to say. All right. Well, thank you so much for all those who came in. I will get those links updated for those videos about the dating apps and the year 1 versus year 2, and join our Facebook group. Check out the course. Oh, I forgot to talk about the course. If you're in that complicated grief and you're stuck and you're needing a little push, I did create a course. It's called the Grief Pivot Course. You can go to griefpivotcourse.com. I can put it here in the chat, www.grief. And the link was messed up for a while because I switched my URL provider from GoDaddy to Namecheap, and all the links broke. And so I had to go back and fix them all by hand, but it should be working now, griefpivotcourse.com. And so I've had several people sign up for it just in the last few weeks and have said that it is very helpful. And so if you have any questions about that, let me know. It's a self-paced course. It's 28 different lessons that will help you do specific things to help you get through that grief rut and kind of get you on the right road to, to hope and acceptance and hopefully some happy days. All right. So I'll leave the links to that one in the description as well. Post any questions or comments. If you have any other ideas of what you want me to talk about next week, feel free, because at some point I'm going to run out of ideas. I'm going to have to start coming up with my own, which I can do. But if there's anything you want me to talk about or touch on, then yes. All right. Cheers to everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. And this will go up on the replay in case anybody wants to catch it and you're catching it on the recording. So thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button if you're here and you like what you see, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any of the next videos that I put out. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye.